I'm Patrick Lancaster. We've got some breaking news on the Ukraine front. Well, not really from the front line where I usually report from, but something that's has the potential of affecting the whole world, not just the Russia-Ukraine war, but something that many are hoping will bring peace. And we're going to talk about why Trump's 28-point peace plan might lead us to World War III, and is it possible that it could really bring peace? Let's get into it. And this plan was reportedly drafted by Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, Marco Rubio, and Jared Kushner, with supposedly a coordinated effort directly with Kirill Dmitriev, Russia's sanctioned envoy. And we're going to get into what Russia has to say about it, what Ukraine has to say about it, if anything. Doesn't seem they're really in the loop. And what it actually says, and what, in our opinion, can be implemented, and what is the end result, how this is going to bring us closer to World War III or full-on peace. Let's talk about it. And this was supposedly delivered to Ukraine with an aggressive timeline, and almost is seeming like an order from the U.S. to take the deal. And what is the 28-point plan? Well, number one, Ukraine's sovereignty will be confirmed. Well, that's pretty freaking wide. Ukraine's sovereignty, according to Ukraine, according to the U.S., according to Russian law, Russian constitution, because obviously Ukraine's sovereignty and Russia's sovereignty, according to each constitution, conflicts. Ukraine's sovereignty does not exist in Russian law the way Ukraine looks at it, and Russian sovereignty does not exist in Ukrainian law the way Ukraine looks at it. So let's get to the next step, because we can just talk about number one all night. Number two, a comprehensive non-aggression agreement between Russia, Ukraine, and Europe. And all will agree to this for 30 years. Hopefully that's possible. That would be something great to bring in peace. But, of course, it has to do with the following stipulations. Okay. And number three, and this is huge, especially in the eyes of Russians, NATO will not expand further. Wow, that is a huge step in the eyes of Russia for sure, if this is implemented. But on that same token, it's written that Russia will not invade neighboring countries. And number four, something that I think could be good as well, a U.S.-mediated communication and dialogue between Russia and NATO to resolve security issues and promote cooperation in the future. Goes without saying, could be a good thing. Number five, Ukraine will receive reliable security guarantees, and this will be the first time that the U.S. has offered these guarantees to Ukraine. And number six is a cap on the Ukrainian military at 600,000. With a current estimated size of between 800 and 1 million service members, this will drastically decrease the size of the military of Ukraine. Now let's think, how many of those current Ukrainian members don't want to be there, that they were literally, you could say, kidnapped off the street? I mean, just many videos of just Ukrainian men just being dragged from their homes, from the street. So this should be something that a lot of people will be happy they can get home to their family. And here's another big one with number seven. Kind of goes back to number four. But Ukraine will permanently remain neutral, as in never join NATO. And NATO will agree to this. Eighth, big for Russia, NATO will agree to never station troops in Ukrainian territory. Number nine, European fighter jets will be stationed in Poland. And number 10, the U.S. security guarantees will have conditions. The U.S. will receive compensation if Ukraine invades Russia, the guarantees will be void. If Russia invades Ukraine, the sanctions will snap back and recognition of territory is withdrawn. Interesting. If Ukraine fires a missile at Moscow or St. Petersburg without cause, the guarantee will be void. And the thing that sticks out to me about number 10 is where's the new lines and what's going to be recognized? I think we're going to get into that here in a second. Now, number 11, interesting for Ukraine, not quite NATO like they want, but Ukraine becomes eligible for European Union membership and will receive temporary preferential access to EU markets. I think some of them might like that. Number 12, a global reconstruction package will be launched, including a Ukrainian Development Fund, joint U.S.-Ukraine energy products, modernization of Ukrainian infrastructure, investments in mining and natural resources. Well, we've seen the resource deals, or rare mineral deals on the table before, and a World Bank financial package. 13. Russia will be reintegrated into the global economy, gradually lifting sanctions, long-term U.S.-Russia economic cooperation, joint ventures in AI, energy, infrastructure, rare earth metals, and Arctic extraction. And Russia will rejoin G8. And here's a big one. Confiscation of Russian frozen assets. And we're talking billions. I don't think this one's going to fly very well. 100 billion used to rebuild Ukraine, run by the U.S. Those contracts will be flying. The U.S. will receive 50% of the profits from reconstruction investments. Europe will contribute another 100 billion. Remaining frozen assets will go into the U.S.-Russia joint investment vehicle to deepen economic ties. And 15, a joint U.S. and Russia security group to monitor compliance of this deal. Interesting how they don't say joint U.S., Ukraine, Russia. 16, Russia will make a law against aggression to Europe or Ukraine. Now, again, we go back to where's the line going to be? Because right now, Russian law says that Donetsk, Zaporozhye, Kherson, and Lugansk regions are legally part of Russia. Regardless what side you favor, that's what Russian law says. So it's going to have to do with where the line is going to be split. Is Ukraine going to take everyone out of Donetsk, Zaporozhye, and Kherson? And then that would go along with the Russian law and Russian constitution. But if that doesn't happen, there's no way Russia can make a law saying they're not going to attack Ukrainian territory if, this is an interesting one because they can make a law saying they're not going to attack Ukraine because Russian law says these territories aren't part of Ukraine. So that's interesting to think about. So maybe the law will say we're not going to attack anything but the 4 regions that are Russia by Russian law because they're not Ukraine. I mean, hey. 17. The U.S. and Russia will extend the nuclear arms control treaties, including New START. So basically, they're going to start up the agreement for nuclear weapons control. Restart it, you could say. 18. Ukraine will reaffirm they're going to stay a non-nuclear country. And actually, before 96, they were a nuclear country, and as far as nuclear weapons go, and they turned them over to Russia. 19, the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. Now, I've been there many times, watching many reports. It's been all over the news. Nuclear power plant directly on the front line. And it's in this agreement that it will be operated under the supervision of the IAEA, and the electricity will be split between Russia and Ukraine 50-50. Number 20. A little step in the direction of Russians dealing with Ukrainians and Ukrainians dealing with Russians on a personal and civilian level to kind of cut down any harsh feelings between the two countries. Well, at least that's my take on it. But it's not only the Ukrainians and Russians, it's also all the minorities that live in these countries, which there's really a lot in both Russia and Ukraine. So, for example, Ukraine will adopt EU standards on minority rights. Both sides will end discriminatory laws. Equal rights for Ukrainians and Russian outlets, let's say media outlets and so on. All Nazi ideology must be banned. That's a big one. That's something that Russia has been pushing for, because it is a fact that certain parts of the Ukrainian government and military have people that consider themselves Nazis. There's no question about this. It's public knowledge, open source. You can find it online, and that is the facts. Now, how many it can be debated. Russia says full of it. Ukraine says just a little bit. But, I mean, we can get into this and go really far. But let's stick to the topic at hand. But, I mean, this would be a big win for Russia, because that's a huge thing that they want to do, to denazify Ukraine. That's what they were stating. So this is, and again, these aren't my words. I don't go around saying Nazi this, Nazi that all the time. But in this case, this is something from the Trump peace plan. And it's something that goes along with what Russia was trying to do. And here's a big one, 21. Territorial concessions and agreements. Crimea, Donetsk, and Lugansk will be recognized as de facto Russian, including by the United States. Okay, Crimea, which, I mean, that ship has sailed a long time ago. Donetsk and Lugansk. Okay, so just by reading that means that one of the stipulations would be for Ukraine to remove their forces from Donetsk. They don't have to remove them from Lugansk because there's no Ukrainian forces in Lugansk. Russia controls the entirety of it. So they'll need to remove the Ukrainian forces from Donetsk. Okay, that's one of the 4 regions that Russian law and constitution says is part of Russia. And Lugansk. So that's 2 covered. So it's interesting. And I always say 4 regions. It's really 5. They still talk about Crimea. But, I mean, like I said, that ship has sailed. So, Crimea, Donetsk, Lugansk. Where's Zaporozhye and her son? Right off the bat, I said in many of my reports, there will be no lasting peace, no real peace agreement, until Russia controls Lugansk, Donetsk, Zaporozhye, her son, and Crimea. But, so they already fully control Crimea and Lugansk. Most of Donetsk. And big chunk of Zaporozhye and her son. But their controlled territory is cut by the Dnieper River. So Russian law considers all of these regions part of Russia. And it would be illegal. Russia has a law not to question or promote the sovereignty, breaking the sovereignty of Russian borders. So if Putin was to say, all right, let's give them Zaporozhye and her son, let's remove our forces from there. Or let's just say, I haven't seen the rest, but let's say cutting it where it is right now, on the border, or on the front line as it is, freezing the front line. There cannot be a peace plan signed, even by Putin. If Putin was to say, okay, we're giving it up, half of these two regions. So that would mean he would be saying, we're giving up part of regions of what is the Russian constitution and law considers part of Russia, and he would be breaking the Russian law. So it ain't gonna happen. And that's where we start to get complicated. But let's go. Let's keep going. Parts of the very next part of the point. Parts of Kherson and Zaporozhye will become frozen at the contact line, and also de facto recognition. Not going to happen. There cannot be a peace plan signed. I mean, ceasefire, maybe, but Russia cannot say, okay, we are at peace now. If there's a foreign military's troops on Russian soil. Can't happen. Not going to happen. So that part of this 28-point deal of Trump is not going to happen. And so much of this, give up Donbass. Well, Donbass, it's Lugansk and Donetsk. Zaporozhye Kherson is not Donbass. But it's part of Russia by Russian law. Ukrainian law says it's part of Ukraine. So what's more likely? Ukraine is going to change their constitution to give up this territory, or Russia is going to change their constitution to give up this territory, which would actually be breaking Russian law. So the next part, Russia gives up other agreed areas. Pretty vague, okay? And Ukraine withdraws from remaining parts of Donetsk. The zone becomes Russian-recognized neutral buffer. Russian forces cannot enter the buffer zone. So it's saying that Donetsk will become a buffer zone, and Russian forces cannot enter that buffer zone. This is like Trump's in La La Land. I mean, that's just totally unrealistic and just not gonna happen at all. Okay, I mean, he started good, but now we're just going down this weird rabbit hole of just bullshit that ain't gonna happen. 22. Both sides agree not to violate future borders by force. And Ukraine's security guarantees will be void if it violates this. Okay, this is where we get really tricky. So, let's say this agreement is signed by all sides the way it is right now. This would still leave a part of Russia, in Russian eyes, occupied by Ukrainian forces. And as I said, Russia cannot give up this territory, part of their territory. Would Russia give up part of Russia? It's not going to happen. So if this agreement would be signed the way it is, there's definitely going to be a follow-up war here. Because, on one hand, Russia ain't going to give up part of Russia in the long run. And, Ukraine's going to give up a lot here. So, and if, let's say Russia does sign this, and in the future they decide, oh yeah, wait, we fucked up and broke Russian law. We can't do that. We have to get what's Russia back to Russia, controlled by Russian forces. Look, we got to move on this. Okay, they move in to take what would be by their law the right thing to do, and that triggers a response by the U.S. to implementing Ukraine's security guarantees, and brings the U.S. and Russia and Europe into all-out war. That would be what this potential peace plan of Trump's would do. Start World War III. Totally realistic. Because The peace plan is not realistic and cannot be implemented. It is just a dream scenario. Maybe not a dream scenario of Ukraine because they're still losing a lot, but it's not a realistic scenario by Russian law and Ukrainian law for that matter. 23. Russia guarantees access to Ukraine on the Dnieper River and free Black Sea grain shipping. Pretty straightforward. Okay. 24. A humanitarian committee will be created to implement the all-for-all exchange of prisoners and bodies of soldiers and civilians, return detained civilians, including children, and implement family reunification and provide aid to victims of the conflict, because there's victims on both sides that need their problems addressed. And something we like to see, Ukraine becoming a democracy again. Number 25, Ukraine must hold national elections within 100 days of the agreement. That means Zelensky will have to give up his throne, you could say, because he's unelected right now. He was elected, and he canceled the elections because of the war. He's not in an elected spot right now. It's just a fact. 26. Full amnesty for all parties for all actions taken during the war. No prosecutions, no war crime claims. Just fucking ridiculous. So people should not be tried for their war crimes? What a fucking load of shit. I've seen civilians murdered by Ukrainian military, by foreign mercenaries. And of course, there's claims on the other side of war crimes. Why shouldn't people that commit war crimes be held accountable for them? I mean, come on, Trump. What the fuck are you thinking? Oh, I mean, that's just ridiculous. And Russia has stated there's no statute of limitations for attacking the Russian civilians. So that's another point that ain't gonna happen. Russia ain't gonna go for it. That's for fucking damn sure. 27. The agreement will be legally binding and enforced by a peace council chaired by, you know it, Donald J. Trump. We wish for peace. We hope it's going to happen. But, again, he started strong, but it ain't looking so great. And 28. The peace plan goes into effect as soon as both sides pull back to agreed positions. Just when everything seems like, you know, we're moving in the right direction towards peace, when you go through it, it's just a load of shit. Or at least a half a load of shit. So, hopefully the sides look at it and there's some negotiation and something does come out of it. But the way it stands, it ain't going to happen. That's for freaking sure. And let's move on to the reactions to Trump's peace plan. And one of the first to react on the Ukrainian side was Ukraine's deputy permanent representative to the UN, saying that Ukraine has officially received a draft from the US and they have outlined principles important to their people, and they agree to work on provisions of the plan in a way that ensures fair end to the war. Right? Fair to who? And she says, first, Ukraine is ready for negotiations at even a leadership level, but their red lines are clear and unchangeable. There will never be a recognition, formal or otherwise, of Ukrainian territory temporarily occupied by Russian forces as Russian land. They say their land's not for sale. Well, right here, as I said, plan is out the window. It ain't going to happen. from seems both sides. And she says Ukraine will not accept any restrictions on its right to self-defense or the size of and capabilities of its armed forces. Again, Trump's peace plan out the window. It ain't gonna happen. And if it does, again, be signed, Russia will attack because they're not agreeing to the terms, and everything will go to shit, and here comes World War III. Might even get to that point without this agreement, unfortunately. And continuing, she says, any genuine peace process must respect fundamental principles, nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine, and nothing about Europe without Europe. I guess it kind of consists of Ukraine being a little bit left out of the loop here, but we're still getting a lot of information, who did what and where, but we saw the plane was drafted without Ukraine, it appears. And now there's reports coming out that Kiev has already agreed to sign this agreement by the 27th of November. And the Kremlin came out right away with Peskov, the Kremlin press secretary, saying doesn't know where those reports are coming from. They don't know anything about that. And let's look at the official response from the Kremlin via, again, the press secretary Peskov. He said that Russia has not received anything official from Washington. He understands that, in Moscow understands that the U.S. is tweaking its peace plan, but again, they have not received anything official. And Russia stands by the framework they've discussed in Anchorage. And that the U.S. has not held talks with Russia about this so-called 28-point peace plan, stating that continued success by Russian armed forces should make Zelensky realize that now is the time for negotiations. And that Zelensky's room for maneuvering shrinks every time Kiev loses more territory. Now, on a little side note for me, that's every day. And he states that Ukraine's further fighting is pointless and only puts Ukraine at greater risk. And he backs up Putin's description of the Kiev leadership as a criminal group. And pointing out that contact between Russia and the U.S. on Ukraine continues and never stopped. And he makes it really clear that the Kremlin will not conduct negotiations on Ukraine via the media, acknowledging the fact that a summit with President Trump is very important and necessary, but expert-level preparation must come first. Just can't come on a whim. All right, so right now, I want you to make sure to go down to the comments and comment, do you think this is going to lead to World War III? Do you think this is going to lead to long-lasting peace? Or just short peace and then more fighting? Who's in the right? Who's in the wrong? What's the real situation? And also, hit that like button. If you're not subscribed, you're missing out. Make sure you subscribe. And also, go down to the description and the pinned comments and subscribe to my Substack. That's where I do deep dives in all of my reports, and even much more journalism that's here on YouTube goes to Substack. So if you're not subscribed there, you're definitely missing out, and it's free. And of course, you can subscribe to as a paid subscriber for $8 a month. But you know, I very rarely put anything as a paid post there. Everything's open to you. They've only experimented with paid posts like twice or something like that. So I'm here for you, open source for you. And I'm independent and crowd-funded, and you can support my work. Not only here in the studio, my new studio, which is a little closer to the front line, but my work on the front line itself. You can support my work with the link on the screen or in the description or in the paid comments. I'm only able to do this with your support. So go down there and, support my work. You can give $5 or, whatever. And, we're going to show the world together. Nobody tells me what to put in my reports. That's why I want to work for you, my viewers, not some agency. Nobody censors me. I put in what I see in my reports. So now I want us to move on to also another important topic. I've been bringing you some information on not just the war, but on opportunities, because I've had in the last weeks some paid sponsorships, which of course I'd never take anything at, like a VPN or a video game, something that I don't feel that you're going to get something out of. And of course I go in depth. I've been interviewing CEOs and going really in depth into these things. But this is not a sponsored video. But I wanted to educate you on some things that some commenters have been telling me about. There has been some issues with people not understanding how to interact with these sponsors that I've had, particularly publicly traded companies. It was commented saying they couldn't figure out exactly how to get into these companies after doing the research. So I wanted to address that here and kind of walk you through it. So some of you pointed out that the stocks that I've been bringing you haven't necessarily been available on some of the common mainstream stock exchanges like Robinhood or Webull. That's because these are what's called OTC, or over the counter, and won't be on those exchanges. Now, there's ups and downs. You could look at the up and the opportunities be like the company, and again, this is not a sponsored video at all. I'm just giving you an example of a past opportunity and something interesting that I brought to you, a sponsorship of Hyperbit Technologies, where I brought you information and went in depth with the CEO here on this channel. And at the time we did that interview, the stock price was at 15, and now it's at over 30. So this shows the potential of these OTC stocks, even though they're not always in the full mainstream. And because you, my viewers, said that you couldn't necessarily find these, in this video, I'm going to bring you, again, not sponsored, have nothing to do with these companies, but the 3 U.S. top brokers where you can access these OTC stocks. Because I don't want to bring you information, tell you about these companies that I think might be beneficial for you or your family, and then you're not able to move through after you do your own research. Of course, I'm not bringing you any financial advice, but I go deep. I'm not just going to show you something and leave you not knowing how to go through with it. So I go deep in everything I do, whether it's advertisements, sponsors, or the war itself. This video is only for educational purposes, not sponsored, because you asked me about it. And again, OTC stands for over the counter. Now, these are smaller or early stage companies that aren't necessarily on the NASDAQ or other exchanges yet. You can think of these OTC brokers as a launch pad. Take Tesla, for example. Before it made it big, it started on one of these OTC brokers. And again, Robinhood or Webull are great for larger companies, but don't typically have these OTC stocks. And it doesn't mean you necessarily need to be restricted. You can open the door to the OTC stocks using platforms like Fidelity, Charles Schwab, and Interactive Broker. Fidelity supports OTC trading with no extra steps going into your regular account and has many research tools for OTC. Charles Schwab, trusted and user-friendly, access to OTC, but there might be some permissions needed once you set up your account. And international brokers, ideal for global access. You can trade both US OTC and international exchanges, including the TSX in Canada. So all 3 are highly regulated, reliable, and well established. So, and I hope this clears up some questions, at least to the people that commented and asked me about this, and for those who didn't comment, and the future viewers. But as always, I want to educate you and show you as much information as possible on whatever I do. So again, not a sponsored video. I'm not even going to put the links to these companies in the description. I think you can find them yourself if you're doing your own research, which you should be, because no financial advice comes from this channel at all. I just give you information of something that I feel you might use to help your family, because that's what every man should do, is help their family and protect and take care of their family. That's what I do, and that's what I try to do for the world by showing them information on multiple fronts that they're not going to get in other places. I get in-depth on the war, I get in-depth in whatever I do for you, because you are my bosses. I do not report to anyone but you, my viewers, and that's the way it's going to stay. I make my reports the way I see it, and I bring you the information that I see. Please like, share, subscribe. Remember, I'm a totally independent crowdfunded journalist. You can support my work with the link on the screen or in the description. Now let's go get some information. I'm on the way to the front very soon. All right, so now we've got breaking news. Trump has come out and confirmed that he's demanding Ukraine accepts the peace plan by Thursday. He says that Thanksgiving is the right moment for Ukraine to agree to the Washington proposed deal. He says Ukraine is losing territory and Putin has no interest in dragging out this war. Well, Russian law has no interest in this agreement, the way I see it. I mean, the way the Russian law says. Russian sovereignty cannot be violated by any peace deal. Now, this could be a ceasefire, but it's not long-lasting peace by Russian law. I don't see how this could possibly go through. And now it's coming out that Zelensky has addressed the Ukrainian people, explaining how it's one of the hardest times in Ukrainian history and how they don't want to lose their dignity and that Ukrainians must pull themselves together and stop internal disputes and fall in line, saying the country must act as one, not to confuse who the enemy really is. He says that he did not betray the country February 24th. He's talking about when Russia came into this 11-year war now in 2022. And he says he will not betray them now. So he's declaring that the people are with him. And it's said that he is proposing alternatives towards this 28-point plan, but he's saying he's discussing it with other partners. Information constantly coming out on this, and it's going to be constantly coming out. So at the time of the recording, this is the situation now. Again, please comment below. Do you think this is going to lead to World War III if this deal is signed? Do you think it's going to be signed? Will Russia agree to this, even though it violates Russian law? And the actual signing of it would be violating Russian law and constitution. What do you think is going to happen? And, well, not to mention, violates Ukrainian law and constitution as well. What's going to happen? Where is it going to go? Is this going to be another war that Trump says he ended prematurely? Hopefully we pray for peace. We pray for peace. We want all wars to stop. We want people to stop dying. But while people are still dying, I'm going to be here on the ground, on the front line, showing you what's really happening with my own eyes, what I see, and bringing it to you. And no one's going to be telling me how to do it. No one's going to be censoring me. I'm here for you. I show you what I see, what's really happening on the ground. Please like, share, subscribe. Go to my Substack to subscribe. We've got so much more going to the Point of Zero soon. Subscribe. You don't want to miss it.